June the 9th, 2018, Wrestleview Live number 38. Woo! It's been a long time since I have done one of these podcasts, so thank you for tuning in live, or if you're watching on the archive, I appreciate it. Going to take a quick phone call pretty soon here. I'm actually going to send the cue right now. We're going to talk about CM Punk and his attempt at mixed martial arts just now. Didn't go so well again. Actually went 3 rounds this time around, so somewhat positive, I guess you could say, this time around for him, but obviously not the result that he wanted, and not the, I don't know what he was expecting at this point. If he was expecting to win in amazing fashion, if he was expecting to just go in there and stomp Mike Jackson, I'm not really sure if that was his goal at the end of the day. But there's some stuff we need to talk about. So I wanted to, let's see if I can bring in this gentleman here. Let's see, let's go. And Alex, are you there, sir?
I am.
Okay.
I'm here.
So, I just said that he went 3 rounds in the chat. Someone just said, Metsaki said, well, he didn't go 3 rounds. He was allowed to go 3 rounds.
He survived 3 rounds. Well, I mean, he did. I actually gave him the first round.
He did win the first round, but it, you know what?
The second round, I think, should have been 10-8 across the board. Only one judge did 10-8.
Yeah. So here's my issue with. Sorry, I think you were coming in a little hot there. So sorry about that, everybody. There's absolutely no reason for me to watch Punk fight again in the UFC ever again. There's a possibility that, like a Bellator would show some interest, or, maybe, I don't know, but his strike.
That's who would scoop him up if he's going to keep doing this. But honestly, I think he should, if he really wants to pursue this, I think he should go to a smaller company.
I don't think he's made for this sport. And
like Titan, you know what it is? So we watched the fight between a guy who's kind of athletic and one guy who's just not athletic at all.
Yeah. And Punk
you could tell the difference by how they were moving.
And Punk was never athletic to begin with in professional wrestling, and he would just kind of get by with his style. It was always very sloppy. Whenever I would hear someone talk about what a great technician he was in wrestling, I would always just kind of smile. I was like, well, he's kind of sloppy. He's not that great. He would pull stuff off.
Yeah.
But I guess the surprising aspect I saw of him was the way he would move forward with his striking. You sent me a video earlier this week of him hitting pads with Duke Rufus, and I was just kind of like, I told you it looked like he had weights attached to his arms when he was throwing shots. And he did that again. Like, there was no technique whatsoever in his striking, the way he was throwing hooks. His grappling
leg kicks looked awful.
Yeah, it did not look good.
Awful. He didn't turn over the hip at all. Like, it's like he couldn't make his body do it. Like, he was throwing, it was just like God, I don't even know how to explain. Like, I've never seen a leg kick thrown so poorly. Like, you got to turn it over. Like, that's not hard to do. Like, it's super weird that you can't figure that out. Like, there was no turnover on his kick, and it was just like, the corner even yelled, like, stop throwing that. And he did. He stopped throwing it, but it was so bad. It's like, don't do that.
I heard him say that. He's like, yeah, we're gonna cool it on the leg kicks there a little bit, but
yeah, because when he did it, he would drop his hands until Mike Jackson could counter off that. I mean, all he had to do was eat the leg kick, which probably had no power on it really anyway, and throw a right hand straight down the pipe, and maybe that's a counter to a kick.
In the chat room, Hayden Barker said, I'm guessing that's it for him then. Shifty Gism said the dude just let's see. I'm sorry, I don't know what Shifty Gism just said. It was just a bunch of dudes saying stuff. Go replace Andrew Lincoln. I have no idea what he's talking about The Walking Dead.
On Walking Dead.
Liquid Jesus is Punk is 39 years old and not the best athlete. This is not the sport for him. All the props, and I'm glad he's in a better sport. But yeah, he needs to just fade into the sunset. I'm kind of the same mindset.
He has heart. I'll give him that. He has heart, and he's a badass for even doing this. But he did it on the biggest, scale. He went right to the top and let millions of people watch him develop, and that's not a good idea. And we all saw, what we saw, and that's just not shit. I mean, I wouldn't do that shit. That's just. Ugh.
And it was weird too, because
I give him credit. He has got heart. He's got heart. I'll give him that. He kept coming. Even he looked like he wanted to quit a bunch of times. He got rocked that one time. I thought he was going to look for a way out. But
I did too.
Mike Jackson, on the other hand, that dude, you could tell he could put him away when he wanted if he just decided to do it. He wouldn't do it. If I was Mike Jackson, I'd be embarrassed as fuck of myself with my performance. In that first round, you should have put him away in that first round.
commentary was talking about it too. They were like, why is he just kind of, because like it was funny. His Jackson's jabs were great. His hooks were great. His elbows were great. He would jab and back off, and he's
a seasoned striker,
much more seasoned striker. But like Joe Rogan, John Anik, and who's the other dude? I'm sorry, the guy from Bellator, Jimmy Smith. They were all talking about like, why is Jackson not putting Punk away? Like, what's he doing? Like, why is he? And then there were times where Punk would like clinch and get Jackson up against the cage, and he'd throw a couple good knees. And so you're like, oh, well, maybe Punk doesn't like that bad. And then they would separate, and then Punk would just like trudge forward. He was so tired by the time the second round started. He
blew his wad in the first round.
He sure did.
Yeah, he blew it.
In the chat, Matsaki said he proved he doesn't have a glass jaw, but he also has no cardio. He was blown the fuck out.
Well, he might have also just proved that Mike Jackson doesn't have like extreme knockout power.
Maybe that's also
true. He has a cumulative power probably, and that's what that was. But that's why he wasn't going down.
Hayden Barker
but I mean,
said,
he did. I remember in the first round, CM Punk landed two clean right hands that actually kind of rocked Mike Jackson. Not rocked him, but whipped his head back, and I was pretty impressed by that.
They also looked super ugly too when they landed.
They did, but he still landed them.
He did land them. Hayden Barker in the chat said the sport is done for him at 35. I really don't know what he could do now. Even celebrity appearances, it would hate it because it would all be about professional wrestling for him. Shifty Gizm, he's trying to translate what he said earlier. CM Punk should now move on to an acting career on his favorite show, The Walking Dead. So a lot of people are saying he should probably call it a day for his role in mixed martial arts. But I don't know. I just wow, there was just some lightning that just hit behind me. We're about to get slammed right now.
Yeah, there's lightning here and there.
We're not.
I was told there's a tornado possibly.
Oh boy!
I hope it doesn't mess up my feed.
I was going to say I'm watching on. By the way, really quick, as I was just about to go live here and talk to you, and I'll let you go because I know you want to get back to the fights as a loud thunder crack.
Tai Tuivasa and Andre Arlovski about the fight.
Okay, they're about to start. Ronda Rousey going into the UFC Hall of Fame. They announced that right after the Punk fight. What do you?
They had a whole package.
What do you think?
That must be she's done. Then that must be their way of saying she's done without her having to say she's done.
What do you? What do you think about them putting her in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, I understand why they did it, and it makes sense. She had a Mike Tyson-esque run for a little bit there before she got smoked by Holly Holm and then by Amanda Nunes. But they put her in because she's probably, her and Conor, and Brock Lesnar, like the most popular people that have ever been in the UFC, probably in the modern era.
That's very true. I was just a little surprised how quick they're doing that, but I guess it makes sense with what she's doing.
I think that's their way of going, hey, look, she's done. She's not going to say it, but she's done.
Yeah, she seems
we'll
like
put her
she's
in the
done.
Hall of Fame, and she won't have to say it, but she's done.
She definitely seems like she's done. Goose in the chat said, sure shit ain't going to fault somebody for having a dream and trying to fulfill that dream, whether he sucks or not. So there's people giving him, he did have heart. He didn't quit. He kept coming forward, but wow, it was just another display of someone that just doesn't have the mechanics down for striking. I was very surprised when he was on his back that he wasn't really trying to do anything. There was almost a hint of a triangle I think he was trying to pull off. And
he got it, and he was trying to pull his head down to close it, but Mike Jackson did the right defense. It was just pretty much posture up, and he let go of it. And I mean, it was pretty easy to get out of that. But yeah, he tried. He tried that. He tried a knee. He rolled for a leg rolled for like a knee bar on the third round there. He didn't get it at all, but he did it. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah, he tried. He went for it, but
he ended up on top right at the end.
Yeah, he tried. He gave it a shot, but. Dana White said before this fight, if he loses, probably not going to happen again. So I'm assuming they're going to move on from Punk. Maybe he tries Bellator. Maybe he tries fighting on an amateur level against people with, less experience. But Mike Jackson didn't, I mean, outside of, having some boxing and kickboxing experience, he also didn't have a lot of pro experience either outside of that loss to Mickey Gall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of weird. I thought he'd put him away, but he just kind of kept Punk in it, and Punk kept coming forward and trying, but he looked real tired. So I guess final word from you. What was your takeaway from watching Punk fight for a second time?
Heart, but sloppy, and needs to work on his cardio. Needs to work on everything. His striking is it's about as bad as Ronda Rousey's striking.
Well, I think Ronda. It's definitely worse than Ronda's. Ronda's may not look that great. Yeah, but not as good.
And then on the ground, he's supposed to, know jiu-jitsu. He's been doing that for years, but even that looked like I don't think maybe it's because he was eating punches and stuff and panicking maybe a little, but he just couldn't get anything going and couldn't do it. That double leg he got in the first round was
not bad.
Somewhat impressive for him. That wasn't bad. The thing that bothered me a lot is he kept getting the clinch, and he kept getting he had the dominant part of the clinch. He had underhooks and stuff, but he wouldn't drop for the hips and go for the double, or he wouldn't even drop for a single. He just held the clinch.
Yeah.
He just held it there, and he wasn't. I think he tried to trip him once, but he didn't really get it. And I was like, "What are you doing? Like, you want this clinch so you can set up the takedown, but why aren't you going for the takedown now?" So I couldn't figure that out. I don't know why he was doing that. He kept getting stuck in a clinch, and just like hanging out there. I think he was trying to rest, maybe, but
Maybe.
he should not have been standing on the feet with him at any point. He should have he should have just been going hard in the paint for the fucking takedown, but he didn't do it.
I'm happy.
Kind of awkward.
I'm happy he didn't run forward and try to throw a right the way he did with Mickey Gall. He kind of took his time and definitely.
Well, he ran. Remember, I don't know if it was second or third, but he ran and threw some sloppy straights and overhand lefts and shit at him, and he was like, he even spun himself around. He was just not good.
Not good, but it went better than the Mickey Gall fight. I will say that. I mean, if there was any positive that you could come out from watching this fight, it went a little better than that fight. But
yeah, and I honestly wanted to see what he was like, see his skills. I basically got to see everything in this fight. I did not think this fight would be a decision, and I did not think I would get to see this much fight time from CM Punk. So I got to see basically all his skills, and my assessment is he needs to work on everything.
If he decides
really
to keep
his
going.
striking.
If he decides to keep going. I don't know if he's going to keep going in the sport at this point, but and he emphatically said this week that he's done with pro wrestling, but I don't know.
I saw that,
You may want to rethink.
He might reconsider that if he wants to keep making money.
Pretty much.
Hopefully he has enough money. Maybe he can just be retired and chill out.
We will see. We will find out. All right. Well, I will let you get back to the pay-per-view because I know is the fight up right now with our.
They're fighting right now.
Okay, that's awesome. Heavyweight fight.
I have Tai Tuivasa winning this fight, and I'm rooting for Arlovsky, but I think Tai Tuivasa is going to win this fight.
They got a lot of Chicago guys on this card tonight. That's kind of cool that they did that.
Yeah, that's Arlovsky. Yeah, Arlovsky. Yeah. They had Clay Guida earlier in the Fight Pass prelims, and they had Curtis Blades.
Yeah, awesome. Good
and
stuff.
CM Punk, obviously.
Yeah, that didn't go too well, but all right. Well, I'll let you go. I'll let you get back to it. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye. That is Alex Martin, my brother, who is a mixed martial arts aficionado. So I always like to we talked to him when Punk first signed with the UFC a couple of years ago, and kind of briefly talked with him, I think, after the first Punk fight. I did like a Facebook Live back in the day. But I think the last time we did a podcast with Hunter Golden, who was not available. I'm going to toss the graphic up here. I know I just did this shot here, but I will take calls for a little bit before we close up the podcast. I know we've only been going for about a little close to 13 minutes, but we wanted to jump on right after the fight ended versus coming on at like midnight when the entire card was over with, just to give some quick thoughts, because I got the vibe that a lot of Wrestleview readers just care about Punk and don't really care about the rest of this card, so I thought I would try this out instead. Phone number to call is 217-909-2447 if you have any thoughts you would like to share with me live about CM Punk losing again for the second time in the UFC, moving to 0-2 in his mixed martial arts professional career. I'm going to go back to the chat room here on YouTube. Hayden Barker, let me go up a little farther. Jacob Cahill said, Punk's only been training for 2 years. Props to the guy for even giving it a shot. It's been a little over 2 years now, but pretty close to that. He's had some injuries that he's had to battle, which is why it took him another 2 years to come back to fight again. So it's been more than 2 years. Hayden Barker said if he trains another 11 years, he could do the seniors UFC. Jacob again chimed in, if he went the MMA route instead of wrestling when he was younger, he may have had something. That's possible. You never know. It's hard to say based on what he did and kind of what we've seen. Let's see. What else do we got here? Hayden Barker joking that podcasts last longer than Punk's UFC career. He did go to the distance. He went 3 rounds. The one thing I was really trying to focus on this time around, because we didn't really get a chance to see much of it in his first fight against Mickey Gall, was his striking. His first fight with Mickey, he just ran at Mickey, threw a right. Mickey went for a takedown, basically got him on the ground, beat the shit out of him, and got him in a rear naked choke and ended it really quick. Going into the fight, a lot of people were saying, obviously, that Punk had the advantage in grappling. And clearly Jackson, with his background in kickboxing and boxing, had a much stronger background in striking. And you could just kind of see it in the footage when you would watch Mike Jackson strike. They would show footage of him striking. I watched watched some of his amateur fights. You could just see the difference in his level versus Punk. And I don't know, there's just something, and I should have mentioned this with Alex when he was on, but there's just something that happens when you learn how to box, and some people really pick up that like movement and that snap and snap off a jab, and they understand the movement and move into hooks. And by no means am I sitting here saying that I'm like a boxing professional, but in the many years that I've been boxing and learning boxing, I realize it takes some time and you just can't jump in there. And a lot of people think they know how to throw a punch, and Punk's a great example of somebody who thought maybe they knew how to throw a punch, and then they have to really train hard and work technique to kind of understand that. So I'm glad I got to see more of that, but it was kind of, it was exactly what I was expecting. It was somebody that's just not very good at boxing. And you can just kind of see it when you watch a professional fight, and you can see the way their foot movement is, the way they're just the snap of a jab and a shot. And Punk was just kind of, again, it looked like he has weights attached to his arms, and he's just lunging, and he's trying to throw these jabs and these hooks, and a couple shots did land, but that doesn't mean that, that you're an expert now and that you're awesome at it. So again, I would call this, I would say, as far as the UFC goes, and I'm sure we're going to hear more comments from Punk later tonight. There'll be a post-fight press conference. I'm sure he'll be part of that. Dana White always talks with the media, but I'm pretty sure we're done with CM Punk as a professional fighter in the UFC. Bellator loves, people with name value. They just signed Jack Swagger. Obviously, Bobby Lashley at one point had a mixed martial arts career in Bellator, so they, pumped him up a lot. They're known for freak show fights, but they do have a lot of former UFC guys under deals. So maybe there's an opportunity there for Punk if he wants to keep going. If I'm, part of Rufus Sport and the trainers, I would kind of tell the guy, like, listen, if you want to keep fighting, that's great, but it's, you're just not, I just don't think it's there. I don't see it there. Like you can kind of see, some promise out of somebody early in their career. Like you can say, well, maybe the striking doesn't look so good, but the grappling's okay. And Punk's grappling isn't terrible, but it's still not that great. You can kind of find something in somebody's game and say, well, maybe if they improve there a little bit, they get a little better with that. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that with Punk anytime soon. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately for him. So, he's going to try, and he might go for it again. He might go, take some amateur fights and fight, continue fighting guys that don't have a lot of experience. But, again, it wasn't as I will say, it wasn't as embarrassing as the first fight was a couple years ago against Mickey Gall, but, you could kind of hear it in the commentary with Joe Rogan and Jimmy Smith, where they were kind of just like, more so Joe Rogan, where he was like, when Punk was on his back and Punk wasn't doing much, and he's like, come on, man, these are just basics, that you should be doing and learning, when you're learning jiu-jitsu and you're working off your back and you're trying to make things happen. Hayden Barker said, well, he's 39 years old. It's too late for him to show promise. That's not a wrong statement. I couldn't, it's hard for me to disagree with a statement like that. Metzaki jokes that they should book Punk versus Jack Swagger in Bellator, which is very possible. Hayden Barker said Rogan didn't want him there to start with. I don't know if Joe didn't want him in the UFC. I just think he didn't think he belonged on a main fight card. And I think if you watch this fight, then you know that the stuff that Joe was saying ahead of time was accurate. Put him on the Tuesday Night Contender Series with the Dana White series on the UFC Fight Pass. Stick him on Ultimate Fighter. I'm not sure how much longer that show is going to last now that they're leaving Fox, but probably, and even like, put him on the prelims, put him on Fox Sports 1 or even put him on the prelims that are part of the Fight Pass. Sticking him on the first fight of a major UFC pay-per-view card. I get it. They're in Chicago. They want to capitalize on that. Punk's popular in Chicago, but you're kind of diluting what you're trying to present as a professional sport that's far more mainstream now than it's ever been. And you have a dude who's just, slow motion, it's just, it's not good. It didn't go very well for Punk. So, it went 3 rounds. He lasted longer than I thought he was going to. I kind of, going into the fight, I was assuming that it was going to be, Jackson putting it away by TKO very quickly in the first round, and that didn't happen. So, Punk lasted longer, lasted a couple good shots, but at one point, and I can go to the results feed. I think at one point they were saying that Jackson could have been argued that he took it 10-8 for the second round. They gave it to Jackson 30-26 via unanimous decision. All 3 judges scoring it the same way. But it was funny watching. When you look at the graphic, it talks about Mike Jackson, making his debut in 2016. He has a pro boxing record of 4-0, which included 4 knockouts. He was a 2011 Houston Golden Gloves champion. And then you get to Punk screen and it goes, well, he debuted in 2016. It's been about 638 days since his last fight, and he trains with Rufus Sports. So there's just no there's no accolades there for him. There's nothing for them to just kind of, pump up Punk with, because he just doesn't. There's just, outside of the fact that he was a popular guy in professional wrestling, that's about it. He was a personality. So, Hayden Barker said, I'd hope Punk would listen to Rogan, as he is one person who will tell him how it is. I think it'd be great if Punk went on Joe's podcast and they had a conversation, regardless if Punk decides if he wants to keep fighting or not. It was interesting when someone, I think it was the Ariel Helwani interview, where somebody asked him, they said, are you going to keep fighting after this? And he's like, well, I'm just really, really focused on Saturday, and I want to really, focus my, my attention on that fight. I don't really want to talk about stuff. And he was asked about the All In show in September, and if he's going to return to pro wrestling. And he was very, very emphatic that he was done with pro wrestling, that he's never been invited or given an official offer. Obviously, if he's going to return to wrestling, the All In show in September, that's where you would do it. But again, I don't know. He sure seems done with pro wrestling, but maybe that was his mindset, pumping up the fight and going into the fight, and you're just really, really super focused and you want to win. We put up a story with Sporting News earlier today, where Punk was saying that, getting the chance to pick up his first win would have been more meaningful than, getting or winning the WWE Championship for the first time. And he was basically saying in the quote that, there's a difference between being told you're going to win and then preparing for something and going into it and, giving your all. But, he got a lot of attention going into this. I mean, it was about a week out, and there wasn't a lot of stuff with Punk. There wasn't like any, videos, and there wasn't a lot of hype videos and stuff. And then they slowly started releasing stuff as the week progressed, and he was on the embedded episodes, and he was, doing media. And that's, around Wednesday, Thursday, there was a lot of media coming out where he said he was just done with wrestling. He was just like, put it in the rearview mirror, and I'm not sure why people keep asking me about this and what's going on. I don't get it, and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see what he decides to do. But yeah, his career with the UFC is, I would be shocked if they give this guy another opportunity. If they do, very, very low level Fight Pass prelims on Fox Sports 1, maybe the Contender Series, maybe you toss him on Ultimate Fight. I don't know if there's any plans or whether or not those shows are going to continue, but more so Ultimate Fighter, with the fact that they're moving to another network soon, but moving to ESPN. But I don't know. I got to see more out of the dude, and again, wasn't blown away. And he's, give the dude a ton of credit for trying this. I mean, if you think about it, he intentionally put himself not once, but twice in a position to be universally criticized. I'm sitting here doing a podcast talking about him, fighting, he's putting himself out there to be openly criticized. So that takes a lot of balls to do that. I don't know if many people would want to risk to do that. Most people would say, I think I'm going to pass and not do that. Maybe just train mixed martial arts or something, or just focus on jiu-jitsu, or just focus on boxing or kickboxing, and maybe not try to see how you would do. I know he said on many occasions he would have regretted not trying it. And, he comes in very similar to the way Brock Lesnar did, but Brock just way, way stronger background in amateur wrestling, and even his career in mixed martial arts fizzled out towards the end. So, it is what it is at this point. Hayden Barker chiming in. He's got his 15 minutes of UFC fame. Time to hang it up. Guest appearance at All In. No wrestling, just to be seen there. That's it for him. That's possible too. He's doing a signing for Pro Wrestling Tees in Chicago that weekend. A lot of people just assumed he was going to show up at All In because he was doing the Pro Wrestling Tees, but those two things are kind of slightly unaffiliated. I hate to say completely unaffiliated, because they did do the All In press conference at the Pro Wrestling Tees headquarters in Chicago, so you can understand the confusion there among some people why they would assume something. But yeah, I would guess he's probably going to call it a day in terms of, at his age and the injury that he had coming into this fight. He's, obviously he said today he felt a lot better than he did against, Mickey Gall did a couple years ago, but I don't know. I would say he's done, but you never know. He could still want to keep trying to do this. Obviously, he just won't be doing it on a huge scale in the UFC. Liquid Jesus said Punk should get a lot of respect for this, but he's best served to either just stay at home or go back to wrestling. I don't know if he wants to go back to wrestling. I mean, he just seems like he's kind of done with wrestling. I don't know. We'll see. you can make those comments and maybe not necessarily mean them at the time. I mean, he was very loose about it. He was like, well, I haven't been contacted. I haven't been given offers. But maybe as time progresses, I don't see him ever going back to the WWE anytime soon with, how things went with the lawsuit recently and the way he was fired. Although he had to kind of expect he was going to get fired based on the comments that he made publicly. I always thought that was a little strange, or people were like, well, how dare the WWE? I'm like, well, what do you expect them to do? I mean, he quit, walked out, went on a podcast, trashed them. I mean, what do you expect them to do? I mean, any company on this planet would do the same thing. Obviously, sending him those papers on his wedding day is a real gut punch. Not trying to defend the WWE for doing anything like that, but what do you expect them to do? I mean, it's a business at the end of the day. All right. Well, we've been on here for, I don't know, close to a half hour. I have a killer thunderstorm rolling in right now, so I'm a little nervous to be broadcasting with expensive technologies that could zap out at any moment. So I think I'm going to wrap this up. Next weekend on let me double check the date, the 17th of June. The whole weekend's kind of packed. NXT TakeOver Chicago the day before, and then Money in the Bank the following day. So next Sunday on the 17th. Supposed to be about a 4-hour show, I think, or a little under 4 hours. The start time is 1 hour earlier than normal, so they're going to be trying out this new technique. So we'll see how that holds up. But I'll be back here on YouTube with Doug Lackey to break down that show as well, and then of course the live coverage that we had on Wrestleview. I also want to thank Paul Nemmer, Mike Tedesco, and Doug Lackey for stepping in for the last 2 podcasts. We got a little stretched. This is the first podcast I've been doing since WrestleMania weekend, so. Obviously, I've had a lot going on in my life personally, so it's been a little hard to schedule these podcasts, and there's been a little bit of a lull and a little bit of break with wrestling, which is kind of nice. Chad Dixon did a feature article for us talking about the break that they've had with in between the Greatest Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank. So it's been kind of nice to have a little bit of a break from like major events. Obviously, the television doesn't take any time off, but there's been a lot going on in wrestling, and it's kept us busy on Wrestleview, so we'll continue to do that. And then next weekend, we'll have tons of coverage with TakeOver on Saturday. I don't think we're doing a podcast after TakeOver, but we definitely will be doing a podcast after Money in the Bank. Let's see some final comments from Hayden Barker. Thanks, Adam. We will see you. Thank you, sir. Adam's been secretly training for you. No, I have not been secretly training. I love to box. I love to kickbox. It's a wonderful workout, but no, I will not be attempting to do what CM Punk did, because he's a brave man to do that on a national scale. Very, very brave man compared to me. All right, well, we are going to, I say me, all by myself, we're going to get out of here. Check in with us next weekend here on YouTube for our post Money in the Bank show. Of course, Doug Lackey's been hitting hard the last few weeks with Wrestleview Weekly, which he broadcasts live on Twitch. We also upload here on our YouTube channel, so definitely check that out. Jason Namaco, Nicholas Gray also checking in today with a new episode of the Roundtable podcast. So we're pumping out more content, and we'd like to continue to keep it that way in the coming years. So we appreciate the support there. We appreciate the support here on YouTube. I want to thank my brother Alex for calling in, because apparently he was the only one that wanted to talk about the CM Punk fight. I assumed a lot of phone calls, and every time I assume people want to call us, they never do. And then when I assume they don't, then they do. It's always how that happens when we go live, but that's okay. It's an awkward time. Usually we're not broadcasting on a Saturday night at this time, so it's all right. This is going to be an archive heavy show anyway at this rate. All right, we will talk to you guys next weekend for Money in the Bank coverage, and again, you can check out some of our coverage today. We just covered the Punk fight, so if you need a recap, obviously there'll be more stuff on Wrestleview. There'll be the post-fight press conference, so we'll have some comments from Punk later tonight. I assume Dana White will be asked about his future, and I'm assuming he was going to say that'll do it for CM Punk in the UFC. But stranger things have happened, so we'll have to find out. But definitely stay with us on Wrestleview. We've also, I don't know if you've noticed, we've made a genuine effort to try to just pack that website with content every day, including the weekend. There have been times where we get a little relaxed with our news coverage on the weekend, and if you notice today, I think we're hitting upwards of 10 headlines, a little bit more on the weekend. So we're really stepping up during the weekdays, obviously, when a lot of stuff's happening, but we're really trying to step it up even more on the weekend, so we can provide you guys more content and more wrestling coverage. So we always appreciate that, and definitely give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Wrestleview. And then, of course, if you're listening to this on archive or live, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. We appreciate it. And, of course, you can get the podcast version of these shows on SoundCloud and iTunes. Just search Wrestleview Media. All right, everybody, that's it for me. We'll be back next weekend. Money in the Bank review with myself and Doug Lackey. I can be reached on the Twitters right below here at Adam Wrestleview as well if you want to interact with me on there. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you later. Bye.